You know, they say imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, but to me, it's just a tribute, man. This is talking about love letters, games that are just throwbacks to classic video games. What's going on, everybody? I'm Jay. Welcome to Square Pegs. Today, we're looking at 10 fantastic games on the Nintendo Switch that are love letter callbacks to amazing games from years past. And when I think of tributes, I think of games that deserve recognition, ones that really show that they were worth the praise that they've received. And one of those games to me is Ninja Gaiden on the original NES. It's a fantastic game. It's a challenging title where you get to play as, you know, a ninja, which is pretty cool. And you go through massive worlds with great level designs and power-ups and all kinds of stuff like that. And it's a classic NES game that I have still never beaten. I am shamed on that for the rest of my life. I will beat it this year. I hope to beat it this year. But for me, one of the most loving tributes on the Nintendo Switch to Ninja Gaiden is this brand new addition to my collection here, The Messenger. Now, I've played this digitally. I've had it for a long time on my digital library, but I just recently picked up the physical release, and it is a fantastic tribute to Ninja Gaiden. If you are a fan of 2D platformers that feature ninjas, that are not necessarily stealth-based ninja combat, but utilize different power-ups, and also have a fairly good sense of humor, which is a departure from Ninja Gaiden, you're going to love this one. It's a really awesome title that I love, and it ties into one of my favorite tribute games that is not featured in this video, but it's Sea of Stars, which is a throwback to games like a little bit like Mario RPG and a little bit like Final Fantasy. This takes place in that same universe, and there's actually story beats that tie in. So if you are at all interested in Sea of Stars, if you're all interested in Ninja Gaiden, please do check out The Messenger. I don't think you'll be disappointed. You know, one of the games that I always look for when I go to an arcade is a classic Cubert machine. I'm terrible at Cubert. I've never been good at it, but there's just something about that game that I love, and I've always loved, and I will always love. It's something that I look forward to playing. I especially love the old school machines where you actually hear the thunk at the bottom of the cabinet when Cubert dies. I think that's really clever. It was a great effect to add to it. And it's just a wonderful kind of like core memory of arcade gameplay growing up. And we've actually got some really cool Cubert tributes on the Nintendo Switch, but my personal favorite is Hoppity Hop, which you play as a rabbit, and it plays just like Cubert. Like, it's pretty explanatory exactly what's going on. You have a tiered system that's set up kind of like Cubert is in an isometric view, and you have to hop from level to level to change them into different colors. And once you clear all of them and you change them to the different colors they need to be, you move on. And there's enemies on every level, of course. There's enemies you have to avoid. There's power-ups you can get to move faster. There are warps so you can get to different parts of the level to avoid the enemies. It is Cubert through and through. Like, it shows its pedigree. It shows what its inspiration is. And it's such a fun game that I really love kind of the renaissance of single-screen arcade games we've gotten on the Nintendo Switch. That's a whole other video down the road, although I might have done that in the past. If I did, the card will be on screen right now. But it's just something where I really love games like that, because it's something where you can play for 5 minutes or 5 hours and not feel like you've wasted a day, because the games are just a blast to play. One of my favorite games on the NES growing up was Powerblade. I loved the concept of it. It was kind of like Terminator 2 meets Mega Man, if that makes any kind of sense. And you fought with a boomerang, which I loved. One of my favorite comic book characters is Captain Boomerang from The Flash. He's a great villain of The Flash, and I loved the opportunity to use a boomerang as a weapon in a video game. I thought it was ridiculous, but I thought it was fun. And it was a really solid NES game that I wish I had hung on to, because man alive is it expensive now. But we did get a really loving tribute on the Nintendo Switch that plays very similarly to Powerblade, and it's called Prison City. This is a really challenging 2D platformer done in an 8-bit style, and it plays so similarly to it that, to me, it feels like a sequel to the Powerblade series. This feels like a return to form for that franchise. You get to play as a character, you are in the prison city, and you have different abilities that you're able to grab and different power-ups that are going to let you throw your boomerang farther, attack harder. There's huge boss fights. There's different aspects of the level that you're able to jump to and grab onto, and it's a really solidly designed game, and it's super fun. It's one that I think a lot of people might have overlooked, because when it came out, it wasn't a very expensive game, and I think people might get blinded by price tags sometimes, especially on the Switch eShop when it is kind of a wasteland of just garbage. When you see something that's cheap, you can tend to just kind of gloss over it and not pick it up. My last video for this, I featured Kaze and the Wild Masks, and I said it was a tribute to Super Mario World, and while I stand by that to a degree, I was lovingly corrected in the comments by folks telling me that it was a Donkey Kong Country tribute, and you guys are 100% correct. And Donkey Kong Country is such a classic game. I'm terrible at it. You can actually check out the link on screen right now. My friend Peter from Waves and Games did a challenge recently where he was having people play through Donkey Kong Country. It was a no-hit challenge, and I was out in the first group. I was very bad, but I did better than Pac-Man Kaze, so that's pretty cool. But it's a quality game developed by Rare, features a classic Nintendo IP, and it was a refresh for the series. And we got a really interesting take on that on the Nintendo Switch in Yooka-Laylee and the Impossible Lair. Now, if you haven't played the original Yooka-Laylee is a loving tribute to classic 3D collectathons, 3D platformer collectathons like Banjo-Kazooie and things like that. And it was, for most people, not a great game. For myself, I actually really enjoyed it. I thought it was a quality game. I thought it was really fun. I love the characters of both Yuka and Laylee. I thought there was some really good interaction there. It felt like Banjo-Kazooie or like Conker's Bad Fur Day, just kind of a PG-rated version of it. And it was something that I really enjoyed, but I didn't know what to expect from Yooka-Laylee in the Impossible Lair because they were turning it into a 2D platformer. And I should have had faith because it is a marvelous, marvelous game. It is a loving tribute to Donkey Kong Country with challenging level designs, great power-ups, fun action in every level, and just quality design from top to bottom. It is one of the most polished games that I've ever played on the Switch. And it really helped kind of address some of the concerns people have with the original Yooka-Laylee, which people felt it was a little unpolished. And I think that's a fact. But this one came out and it was spit-shined to a sheen. It's absolutely fantastic. And it's one of the few games that I've ever played where you can attempt to just beat it from jump. Like, you go in, you get to the world map, you can go right to the last level and try to defeat Capital B right away. You won't, but you have the opportunity to. And that's kind of the idea of it, is you can always go back and try to defeat the Impossible Lair, but you should probably go through the world map to beat it. And I just love that about that game. And I love the characters of Yooka-Laylee. I love that they're still getting recognized. I love that we're getting Yooka-Replaylee soon, the remake of the original Yooka-Laylee. I think that's awesome. And you just play them all. They're great. Support independent developers like Playtonic. They're fantastic. Now, while I'm not good at it, and you can actually play a version of this game on the Nintendo Switch, Myst is something that I think is a timeless classic in the history of video games. It's a 3D puzzle game where you need to go around and solve different puzzles and riddles and things like that. And I think it's super clever. It's more clever than me, to be clear. It's something that my far more analytical friends and family enjoy more than I do, but I do appreciate Myst for what it is. But on the Switch, we got a game called The Room. And now The Room has been around for a while. It was originally a mobile title. I originally saw it on my iPad, but it's something on the Switch that I think is just like tailor-made for the console because it's such a perfect experience to play handheld. Like, it's one of those few games where I actually prefer to play handheld than I do to play on a TV. You are trying to open a box. That's the entire idea of the game. And as you're opening the box and solving the different riddles of the box, you're going to get further and further into this mystery of what The Room offers. It's a brilliant title, and I love that it exists, and I love that there's been tons of sequels too. I think there's 3 or 4 sequels now for the game. Might only be 3. I'm not sure. I'll have to look that up. If I'm wrong, just point and laugh. It's fine. But if you haven't played it, I strongly suggest you do. There's also the House of Da Vinci, which are great kind of Myst-like tributes as well. And they're just really fun. Like, they're almost hidden object games, but they're not. They're definitely hidden puzzle solving games where like one puzzle solved will lead to solving another puzzle and things like that. It's just a fun cascade of events, and they're just brilliant titles. I love the Advance Wars series. I've loved it since the first time I played it. I love the original GBA releases. I love the 2DS games as well. I think they're all fantastic. There's a cast of characters that are incredibly memorable. The gameplay is wonderful. The storylines are really solid. I love that we got the remake on the Nintendo Switch that WayForward did. I thought it was wonderful. We also got a loving tribute from the folks over at Chucklefish. Actually, 2 of them. We got 1 and 2. This is a collection of Wargroove 1 and 2. This was a release from Super Rare, which is really cool. It's a really nice physical edition, and it's a wonderful story that takes place in kind of a fantasy setting where you are going around and trying to solve the story and playing through the story. It's just like an Advance Wars game. You have troops that you're able to control. They have certain life levels where when you combat the enemy, you're going to take off some of their troops. They're going to take off some of yours. And it's really a battle of attrition all the way through. But different abilities are more powerful against different units. Some units are more powerful against yours. So it's about balancing. It's about utilizing your powers to make sure that you are in the right position to claim victory. And it's a really solid series of games. I love the first one. I'm just getting started on the second one. I haven't gotten too far into it yet, so I can't say too much about that one, but as far as the first one goes, it's one of the best tactical strategy games out there. So if you're looking for something like that, be sure to check Wargroove out. All right, a game now that I love is Cave Story. Cave Story started out as freeware online. It was a game that was I believe it was a Flash game, and eventually we got it released on consoles. There's actually a Switch release, which is fantastic. My personal favorite is the 3DS release. And it's just a wonderful run and gun shooting platformer that I think is a genre-defining game. It really is. It was just a landmark of independent development, and something that I think was a beautiful piece of software to see realized. And my friend Andrew, aka Nintendo, made a tribute to it. It's a tribute to a lot of games, to be fair. There's a lot of love letters in his video game Carl that apply to this. But to me, the one that kind of stands neck and neck with it is Cave Story. Carl, you play as a little robot who is trying to just escape, trying to fix the problems of the dump. And as you go through, you're basically just defeating the bad guy. It's a very simple story. It's a very easy to understand and digest and get into story, but the gameplay is what is key in Carl. The story is great as well, but the gameplay is so magnificent, and it's so easy to fall into, and just so easy to fall in love with the character of Carl and all of the different characters in the dump that you're going to become friends with and learn about and get power-ups from and explore around with. And the level designs are it's legitimately one of my favorite video games ever. When I met Drew, I was really, really starstruck by the fact that I was meeting someone. Truth be told, I'd never seen any of his videos before I met him at Korg's a couple of years ago. I was just excited to meet him because he made Carl. And it is such a magical title and such an incredible game. There's a physical coming soon from Premium Edition Games, and I urge everyone to get it. It's going to be incredible. I do like 3D platformers. I think that there's a plethora of them from the N64 generation and the PS2 generation that are just worth giving their flowers to, whether it's something like Super Mario 64, which, while not my favorite game, does deserve every bit of recognition it has ever received. Games like Conker's Bad Fur Day, like Banjo-Kazooie, like games like The Haunted Mansion on the PS2 that were just these awesome 3D adventures that were super duper fun and just relied heavily on just being quality gameplay experiences, and while maintaining a sense of humor. And one of the things I really like about Bakaru on the Nintendo Switch is it's that type of game. It doesn't take itself too seriously, but the gameplay is solid. It is a fantastic experience to play through. It looks great. It sounds great. The gameplay is really polished, and it's very funny. Like, it is super hilarious as you go through. There's some really funny stuff that you figure out. You actually learn facts about Japan, but it's all presented by a talking poop, which is pretty funny. And it's just, I love it. I can't help but say enough good things about it. It is such a quality title. There is a physical release. I haven't picked it up yet, so if you want to get that game, I strongly urge you to get the physical release because it is just a magnificent title. But I absolutely love it. Worth playing. One of the most recent releases that I picked up on my Nintendo Switch is the Suikoden 1 and 2 HD remasters, which are two of my favorite games of all time. Suikoden 2 is my favorite game of all time. Suikoden 1 is probably in my top 20. And I just love them. I loved that I had to collect different characters. I loved that there was such a huge cast, all with their own unique personalities. I loved the combat. It was my kind of game. It was my kind of RPG. And I am just so fortunate that we got that release on the Nintendo Switch, that we have had like 7 Suikoden games here released in the States. And I'm truly blessed to live in a timeline where Ayuden Chronicles 100 Heroes, which was developed by the creator of Suikoden, exists. Is it as polished as Suikoden? No, it is not. It is decidedly a less clean game than Suikoden was, but the heart is there. The gameplay is there. The storyline is fun. It is just such a positive tribute to that classic series, and I really do feel like that game right there is what forced Konami to release Suikoden 1 and 2 as a remaster. I am saddened by the creator's passing last year. I wish he could have seen not only the realization of the Ayuden Chronicles series coming to bear, but also have seen the love that was shown for Suikoden 1 and 2 with its re-release from Konami, because just an incredible talent, absolutely incredible talent. And the games themselves are just magnificent, and I think they are beyond worthy of the recognition they've been receiving lately. Finally, I want to talk about one of my favorite GBA games, and that is Wario Land 4. I can't say enough how great of a game it is. It's signature Nintendo gameplay. It is classic 2D platforming from Nintendo, just with a Wario spin on it. So there's greed involved. There's some really fun QuickTime events and just kind of positioning you have to do and different abilities that you're able to gain. The level designs are wonderful. It is irreverent while still being fun and still being fantastic and still taking itself seriously. Like, it's still a seriously good platformer. And we got kind of the same thing with Anton Blast, which released recently on the Nintendo Switch. It is a chaotic, insane game. You play as Anton, and your job is to just go crazy and wreck shop in the levels because Satan stole your booze. Yep. It's ridiculous. It is basically, Anton kind of turns into a human pinball or a human cannonball that when you get moving quick enough and the locomotion proceeds and you just keep kind of advancing your speed, you'll start pinballing all over the place and just start bouncing off of things and wrecking shops. There's multiplanar exploration in the game where you're going to go in the foreground and in the background and have to do platforming on each area. Tons of enemies to defeat, great level designs. A great concept where when you get to the end of the level, you have to rush back to the start of the level to exit, where you're actually in a countdown against the clock. So the game goes from kind of a methodical platformer where you need to still use that kind of chaotic pinball ability, but you need to make sure that you are using it for the powers of good, I guess, for lack of a better term, where you need to kind of plot your jumps and plot your positioning. It's magnificent. One of my favorite releases on the Nintendo Switch last year. It released, I want to say, in December, and it was just an absolutely brilliant title. Anton Ball as well is part of the same series, and that's kind of a tribute to Breakout. So check that one out too, but it's a very bizarre tribute to Breakout. Definitely worth checking out though. There we have it, 10 tributes to classic games on the Nintendo Switch I think are worth playing. Got some physical releases here, got some digital releases. Let me know in the comments down below your favorite tribute games on the Nintendo Switch. I would love to hear from you. If this is your first time here, please give the video a big thumbs up. The engagement helps the channel out, gets that algorithm kicked into overdrive, and gets people's eyes on the channel. I would appreciate it. And if you're new here, click that subscribe button. I do a couple videos a week. I'd love to have you stick around, kick the tires on the place. Check out the link on screen right now if you want to see the previous video in this series that I did where I talked about earlier, where Kaze and the Wild Mask is featured, as well as 9 other fantastic video games. Till next time, folks, I've been Jay. Appreciate you spending a little bit of time with me. Remember to play more games, stay square, and take care. I'll talk to you soon.